Hi friends! It is a dreary day over here while I'm filming this, but this video is very exciting to me because I am filming another new releases video. A couple of months ago, I did a video where I talked about a lot of 2024 releases that I was super excited about. They were mostly fantasy and romance, which are the two things that I read the most, but there were a couple of other things in there, here and there. Well, ever since then, we've had more book announcements that sound super exciting to me, and so I thought, oh, I need to make a part 2 because I just want to talk about all of the books that I am excited about. This is not a guarantee, obviously, that I'm going to get around to reading them right now. There are so many books, and I can only read so many at a time. But here is a list of 100 more 2024 releases that I'm excited about. Caveat, again, this is very primarily fantasy and romance focused. I tend to just gravitate towards those genres, so please do not treat this as a definitive list of 2024 releases. These are the ones that just personally caught my eye and that I am super excited about, that I think you guys will be super excited about too. Unlike the last video, I didn't actually split this one by genre. I do have another section that's a little smaller, however, where I talk about release dates that got switched around a little bit. So we're gonna start there. These are a couple of books that I had already mentioned that I'm pretty sure the last time I had them in the video, they had a different date tagged. I wanted to make sure we're all aware of the updated dates. Okay, so let's start with that section. First, we have The Wren in the Holly Library, which is now coming out on June 4th. This book is pitched as a darker shade of magic meets Six of Crows in this alternate day New York where monsters live among humankind. If you see me glancing that way, it's because I'm looking at my laptop where all my notes are. I am excited about that one. I mean, you had me at like Darker Shade of Magic and Six of Crows, and then you said it in New York. Of course I'm gonna be excited about that. Next is The Reckoning of Roku, which is the next book in the Avatar novels. This is now coming out on July 23rd. This explores the beginning of Roku's journey from privileged Fire Nation noble to the powerful but indecisive Avatar, whose hesitancy may ultimately pave the way for the 100-Year War. Then we have The Mirror of Beast, which is the sequel to Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken. This one is now coming out on July 30, 2024. It's the sequel to Silver in the Bone. It has Arthurian legend in it. It is about two siblings, and one sibling's fight to save the other. The next book is A Sorceress Comes to Call, which is now out on August 6th. This is a dark retelling of the Brothers Grimm's fairy tale Goose Girl, which is rife with secrets, murder, and forbidden magic. Then we have Lady Macbeth, which is now also coming out on August 6th, and this is a reimagining of one of Shakespeare's most famous villains, Lady Macbeth. It gives her a voice, a past, and a power that transforms the story that was written for her. Then we have A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping, which is now out on September 10th. This is an enchanting novel about a witch who has a second chance to get her magical powers and her life back on track. And last but not least, we have Heavenly Tyrant, which is now coming out on the 24th of December. This is the sequel to Iron Widow, which was a sci-fi YA book where they use big machines to fight a war against their enemy, and it involved a pilot and a concubine, except that there was one young lady who defied all odds and expectations. All right, now we're gonna get started on the books. I'm super excited. There's so many of them, and there's a variety of things that I am looking out for or looking forward to, so I'm definitely excited to share them. I'm gonna try not to react too much to the synopsis like I did in the first video. I'm gonna keep it more like just reading the synopsis or telling you guys what it's about, and hopefully it'll pique your interest as much as it did for me. All right, so we're gonna start on April 16th. I have 4 that I wanna talk about. So we have Immortal Pleasures, which is about an ancient Aztec vampire roaming the world in search of vengeance and love. You know what you did. Annie's mother dies suddenly. Her carefully curated life falls apart as her obsessive-compulsive disorder returns, and she finds herself under the scrutiny of the police with regards to a missing art patron. Then we have Late Bloomer. In order to escape the constant inundation of requests she can't say no to after winning the lottery, Opal buys a flower farm that she intends to hide out in, only to find that there's another young woman who claims ownership of the farm and that they'll have to coexist somehow. Then we have one that my friend Danica read, and that's how it got on my radar. It is Other People's Words, Friendship, Loss, and the Conversations That Never End. And this nonfiction shows us how we carry with us the language of loved ones who are gone, and how their words could be portals to other times and places, which sound like exactly the kind of nonfiction that I want to read. On the 23rd, I have 3. First, we have Off With Their Heads, which is a Korean-inspired Alice in Wonderland retelling about 2 very wicked girls forever bonded by love and betrayal, or blood and betrayal. I don't know, maybe there is love. Who knows? Earl's Trip. Archie, Simon, and Effie go on an annual trip together, but this year's trip is interrupted by an old family friend requesting Archie's help in preventing a ruinous scandal by rescuing his childhood friend Olive from an ill-fated elopement, and Olive's sister Clementine from rescuing Olive, and this is historical romance. Started with a secret, Jared Sotheby makes an instant connection with a woman that he meets upon his arrival in Peak, Virginia, only to discover that she's actually managing the B&B that belongs to the biological family that he's looking for. That one's a contemporary romance. On the 30th, I've got 4 for you. First is A Magical Girl Retires, and it's the title that really drew me into that one. It's about a millennial turned magical girl who must combat climate change and credit card debt in this delightful, witty, and wildly imaginative ode to magical girl manga. I mean, I love magical girl manga, so I'm very excited about that. The Vanishing Station, which is a lyrical and bold YA debut about an underground magic system in San Francisco and the lengths one girl is willing to go to protect the one she loves. Winds of War. All Yen wanted was a home that she did not have to leave, and now, with more power than anyone in the kingdom, she has to choose whether to save the world or destroy it. Deplorable Conversations with Cats and Other Distractions. If you didn't know, I am in a phase where I just really want to read books about cats and that have cats on the cover, so I've been slowly collecting them and taking note of new ones coming out. This was one of them. And this one is basically about a guy who finds himself becoming the companion of a talking cat. On May 1st, I only have one that I need to share about, and it is The Spindle of Fate. When Evie May discovers that her recently passed mother was the head of a guild of magical weavers, she enters the Chinese netherworld to try and bring her back. On the 7th, I've got 3, so May 7, there are 3 books. I have 5 Broken Blades. It says, the 5 most dangerous liars in the land have been mysteriously summoned to work together for a single objective, to kill God King June. The Silverblood Promise. When Academy dropout and disgraced noble heir Lucan discovers his father has been murdered under mysterious circumstances, he's determined to unravel the mystery in order to make up for his past mistakes. The Ministry of Time, which this one sounds really good. It is a time travel romance, a speculative spy thriller, a workplace comedy, and an ingeniously constructed exploration of the nature of truth and power and the potential for love to change it. It's got all of these elements in the plot that sound really good to me, so I'm very curious about that one. I also really enjoy the cover. On May 9, I have 1 book marked off, and I think this may be releasing in the UK. I'm not sure if it's in the US as well. It is called Snow-Blooded. A fantasy debut set in 18th century Scandinavia full of assassins, magic potions, romance, and rivalry. I have 7 books that are coming out on May 14th. So first is A Crane Among Wolves. When Isolde, determined to save her sister, and Daeun, the prince who wants to dethrone his half-brother, find their paths colliding, and they end up becoming reluctant allies in a bid to change the world. The Last Witch. For a girl who wants everything to stay the same, nothing is scarier than all the changes that Camp Foster brings. New friends, new foes, and souls with unfinished business. This one's a middle grade. I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. The main character inherits his dad's job as a dragon catcher and exterminator, a career that he really detests because he likes dragons and really has always wanted to be the prince's valet, even though fate seems to have something else in store for him. Then we have a companion novel sequel, The Dixon Rule. Diana and Shane end up fake dating, but discover real sparks flying between them, and this is part of a Kennedy series. It comes after The Graham Effect. Love at First Book. When a librarian moves to a quaint Irish village where her favorite novelist lives, the last thing she expects is to fall for the author's prickly son, until their story becomes one for the books. I love a good pun when they're describing contemporary romance. It Waits in the Forest. Selena investigates the circumstances of her father's death and her mother's coma, as well as a series of strange tourist murders, and these all seem to be tied to the forest, and she does this investigation with the help of her ex-boyfriend. An Infinite Pull. Basically, what got me for this one was the cover, but also the sort of subtitles. It's Treasure Planet meets The Little Mermaid. It's a space fantasy. Nim wanders the ether, desperate to find her way home to her family, and currently in hiding from a ravenous predator called the Shadow. Aaron is the son of the captain of the mercenary crew, the Celestial Company, but he is actually afraid of space. When Nim saves him from a mission gone wrong, Aaron sees helping her as an opportunity to prove himself. There are 4 books coming out on May 21st. First, we have Savor It. Sage and Fisher make a deal. Sage will improve Fisher's image in the eyes of the town and remove the roadblocks he is facing with the restaurant he wants to build or grow. And Fisher will be Sage's partner for the competition. Heavenbreaker. A girl hell-bent on revenge ends up riding the machine Heavenbreaker to joust against the fiercest nobles in the lands, only to discover there's something powerful and unstoppable in the machine with her. Queen of None. King Arthur's sister Anna returns to Carillon after years away, only to discover that there are new threats within and without, and a strange new power is awakening within her. The North Wind, which I believe was indie published first and now has gotten picked up by a traditional publisher. The immortal North Wind requires a bride, and when he sets his eyes on Ren's sister, Ren will do anything to save her, even sacrifice her own self. On May 28th, there's only 1 book, and it is called Dreadful. Gav has no idea how he ended up waking as Dreadlord Gabrax, but he has to play along with his own evil plan in the hopes that he can get his memories back as he tries to figure out who he wants to be. There are 5 books coming out on June 4th that I wanted to highlight today. Eris Takes All. A teenager determined to pull off the perfect heist in the middle of her father's wedding. No idea why she wants to do a heist, but that sounds like fun. And the cover reminds me of Taylor's video for I Bet You Think About Me. Moonstorm. In a society where conformity is valued above all else, a teen girl training to become an Imperial pilot is forced to return to her rebel roots to save her world. So sci-fi, which sounds really good, and I really love the cover. There is a door in this darkness. Wilhelmina Hart is part of the infamous class of 2020. Now, Wilhelmina, like so many of her peers, is in limbo, having deferred college because of the pandemic. Compounding the national trauma of 2016 to 2020, Wilhelmina has wrestled with the devastating loss of one of her 3 beloved aunts shortly after the 2016 election. This is a loss she felt so keenly that she spent the last years deep in her personal depression, only obscured by the seemingly endless waves of national trauma. Now on the cusp of the most consequential election in living memory, Wilhelmina may have found a door in her darkness and perhaps the courage to pass through it if she could decipher the bizarre messages that keep appearing in her life. Daughter of the Merciful Deep. A woman journeys into a submerged world of gods and myth to save her home in this powerful historical fantasy that shines a light on the drowned black towns of the American South. Gay the Pray Away. Valerie's worldview shifts after taking a queer book home from the library and meeting and falling in love with Riley, and she finds herself forced to decide what to do when their romance is discovered. I have 2 books coming out on June 11th. We have Dancers of the Dawn. Flame wielder Asira has trained with an elite troupe of dancers in the desert to be the queen's most formidable assassins, but finds herself questioning everything she knows on the eve of her graduation. The Rom-Commers. Emma is given the chance to rewrite a script for famous screenwriter Charlie Yates, not expecting that she'll have to convince him that rom-coms and love stories matter, even if that convincing includes kissing him at some point. We have 1 book coming out on June 12th, and that is A Rivalry of Hearts. 2 rival writers are gunning for one prestigious publishing contract, and they end up making a bet. I wanted to spotlight 3 books that are coming out on June 18th. One-star romance. A struggling writer is forced to walk down the aisle at her best friend's wedding with the man who gave her book a very public 1 star. The Girl Who Kept the Castle. Wizard West hosts a competition to choose his successor, and Faye, the daughter of his groundskeeper, works hard to keep things running behind the scenes, until she discovers that a servant of the evil Shadow Queen has sabotaged the contest in order to destroy their kingdom, and she needs to do something to save the day. That one's a middle grade, and it sounds so good. Of Jade and Dragons. After Ahiwi's father is murdered, she vows revenge and heads to the capital disguised as her brother in order to find answers about her father's death. I have 2 books for June 25. First is Saints of Storm and Sorrow, A bisexual nun hiding a goddess-given gift is unwillingly transformed into a lightning rod for her people's struggle against colonization. This one's a Filipino-inspired fantasy, and I'm so excited to read it. The Hunter's Gambit. Kazan is captured by a group of vampires and brought to the vampire court, where she will reign for a few days until they end with an extravagant feast where she is the main course. Unless she can find the magical weapon she built to kill their kind, or forged to kill their kind, and make her escape. So it's like a locked room mystery, but with vampires. There are 8 books that I wanted to spotlight for July 9th. We're going to start with These Deathless Shores. Jordan, suffering from withdrawal from the island's magical dust after many years away, convinces her best friend and fellow ex-lost boy to return to the island with her in order to assist with ousting Peter from his throne and seizing control, only to discover that the island might have its own plans. The Half-King. In a world where every firstborn child of the noble houses bears a curse, and only one heretic cult might hold the answers to breaking them. Nine-Tailed, which has this amazing cover. Nine-tailed fox spirit Sunny has her uneventful life upended when her old friend Ethan Lee asks her to help him find her brother's murderer. The Dallergut Dream Department Store. A whimsical, poignant novel about the inner workings of a department store that sells dreams, which has the most delightful cover. It's Only a Game. Marina Chan and her friends are being framed for murder unless they can win 4 rounds of this very dangerous game, which sounds, again, very intriguing. The 5 Stages of Courting Dalisay Ramos. Evan wants to date Dalisay, but discovers that if he wants a chance, he'll have to go through the courtship rituals lovers in the Philippines have employed for generations. The Sky on Fire. Anarod is rescued by a group of adventurers and roped into helping them steal a dragon's hoard, which belongs to the current regent, who's the person who wants her dead. All this and more. A woman who wins the chance to rewrite every mistake she's ever made and how far she'll go to find her elusive happily ever after. I have 3 titles to talk about for July 16. The West Passage. The fate of the inhabitants of Grey Tower rests on the shoulders of 2 individuals, the mother of Grey House and the apprentice of the deceased Grey Guardian, whose paths cross in the unguarded West Passage that also happens to be the ancient byway of the beast threatening their world. Catch the Sun. Childhood friends Ella and Max are reunited as teens, and friendship to eventual romance ensues, though Ella is shunned as part of the fallout of her father's conviction, and Max is juggling the responsibility of caring for his disabled father and distant twin brother. Not Another Love Song. 2 string players fight their attraction for each other as they compete for center stage. 4 titles to talk about for July 23. The Last One, where a young woman learns the world is about to be destroyed by an evil, destructive force, namely herself. The Lost Souls of Ben Zaiten. Machi hasn't been able to speak since her best friends ditched her and can no longer see the point of being human, not expecting Ben Zaiten to hear her prayer and offer a counter-prayer to show Machi all the beauty of humanity, ultimately restoring her voice. A Certain Kind of Starlight. Addie and Tessa are drawn back to Starlight, Alabama, to help out their aunt, and both are working through some things. In the Shadow of the Fall. A cosmic war reignites, and the fate of the Orisha lie in the hands of an untried acolyte. 3 titles for July 30. Long Live Evil, which has, again, an epic cover. Ray enters a magical bargain that allows her to enter the world of her favorite series, only to find that she has arrived and become the villainess. 18 Roses. Lucia doesn't want the traditional Filipino debut, but when her mom plans one behind her back, she needs to find 18 friends to fill the role of roses before her Lola arrives for this special occasion. Castle of the Cursed. Estella is determined to figure out the mystery of her parents' death and starts by looking for answers about their history and their past when she moves overseas to live with her estranged aunt in their ancestral Spanish castle. There are 2 titles for August 6. We have The Seventh Veil of Salome. A young woman wins the role of a lifetime in a film about a legendary heroine, but the real drama is behind the scenes. Full Speed to a Crash Landing. Ada Lamar ends up rescued by a government salvage crew until the agent in charge, Rian White, ends up suspecting there's more to her than meets the eye. There are 4 titles to highlight for August 13th. First is The Doll Makers. This is set in a world centered around destructive, all-consuming monsters, the magical dolls designed to fight this force, and the artisans tasked with creating these demon-slaying dolls. Blue Graffiti, which I'm not gonna lie to you, came on my radar because the guy who wrote it was in Shadow and Bone. Cash has never known anything beyond Johnston, Wisconsin, until a stranger named Rose appears in town one evening and he falls in love at first sight. The Dark We Know. Isa left her small town behind after the deaths of her two childhood friends, but upon her return to collect the inheritance her abusive father left her, her only surviving friend, Mason, asks for her help to stop the evil supernatural entity that killed their friends before it hurts anyone else. We have a sequel next, Ghostsmith. In this action-packed finale to the House of Dead duology, Ren and her friends put everything they know to the test as they battle the living and the undead in order to save their world. There are 4 titles for August 20. First is Tessa Miyata is So Unlucky. In this one, Tessa and her best friend Jin have to battle the gods and win, and I really enjoyed the first book when I read it last year, so I'm excited for the sequel. The Volcano Daughters. 2 sisters raised in the shadow of El Salvador's brutal dictator El Gran Pendejo and their flight from genocide, which takes them from Hollywood to Paris to Cannery Row, each followed by a chorus of furies, the ghosts of their murdered friends who aren't done telling their stories. Asunder. Karis uses her Death Speaker abilities to investigate suspicious deaths, but a job goes sideways and connects her to a dying stranger that has dangerous secrets. The Instrumentalist. A stunning debut novel of music, intoxication, and betrayal, inspired by the true story of Anna Maria della Pieta, a Venetian orphan and violin prodigy who studied under Antonio Vivaldi and ultimately became his star musician and his biggest muse. There are also 4 titles for August 27th, Between Dragons and Their Wrath, a new rip-roaring epic fantasy full of dragons, alchemical magic, and forbidden romance that unfolds as 3 people in a shattered empire become entangled in a looming revolution. Given our history, Clara Fernsby has nearly achieved her goal of becoming a tenured professor, but a blast from her past arrives in the form of Theodore Harrison, a boy she fell in love with years ago. The Ghost Cat. This follows a cat through his 9 lives in Edinburgh, moving through the ever-changing city and its inhabitants over the centuries. Knives, seasoning, and a dash of love. In this delicious debut from actress Katrina Kwan comes a spicy romance between prickly Alexander Chen, who has spent over a decade working his way to the top of the culinary world, and Eden Monroe, who lied on her resume to get the job as his sous chef. When her bubbly attitude collides with his sharp edges, can they handle the heat between them, or will their love be a recipe for disaster? I have 6 titles I want to talk about for September 3. The Monstrous Kind. Set in Regency, England, it's about 2 sisters fighting to hold on to their manor while deadly monsters prowl along its perimeters. The Games Gods Play. Once a century, the gods select a new ruler in a cutthroat competition that pushes mortals to the limit. And this year, Hades has picked a champion no one expects in order to fight for him. The Cottage Around the Corner. A feisty witch and a handsome mage must put their heated business rivalry aside to save their small town from supernatural forces. Us in Ruins. Margot is on the quest to uncover and reassemble an ancient and cursed vase, with the help of a boy who went missing in 1932, because it's the only way to put back together her broken heart. Next, we have a companion novel sequel, Wild Eyes. This is going to be the 2nd book in the Rose Hill series from Elsie Silver. Don't know who it's about, don't know the plot yet, but it's Elsie Silver, so had to be on this list. Immortal Dark. The Cruel Prince meets Ninth House in this dangerously romantic dark academia fantasy where a lost heiress must infiltrate an arcane society and live with the vampire she suspects killed her family and kidnapped her sister. We have 4 titles for September 10th. Vilest Things, which is the sequel to Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. It finally has a title. I did mention it in the first video, but we had no title yet, and it basically continues Kala and Anton's story. The Shadow Key. Henry Talbot investigates the murder of his predecessor in a small backwater part of Wales. Impossible Creatures, which I am really excited to get to. Christopher discovers his reclusive grandfather is a guardian for one of the ways between the non-magical world and a cluster of magical islands known as the Archipelago. He also meets a girl named Mal who is being pursued by a killer and is in pursuit of a baby griffin, and the pair end up going on a quest across the archipelago to discover the truth. This will be fun! This is a cozy quest romantasy about a group of friends who once defended their magical land together but haven't spoken since, reuniting to attend a royal wedding and ending up on a new adventure to save the realm and hopefully themselves. An Academy for Liars. As someone with the gift of wielding her will like a weapon, Lennon winds up attending Drayton College and honing her skills, only to discover that there are more secrets. Isn't there always, though? On September 20, I have one title, The Solstice Court. Kizara is the sole heir, and while her kingdom is at peace, the two kingdoms on either side have been locked in a decades-long war. Where she is not supposed to show any favoritism towards one side, it's simple enough until the heirs of each kingdom, who happen to be two brothers, show up demanding her allegiance and her affection. We have 5 titles for September 24th. Throne of Secrets is the first. Two rivals torn apart by a dark memory reunite on a deadly hunt and in an irresistibly twisted fairy tale. This is the next book in Kerri Maniscalco's Throne of the Fallen series. Graveyard Shift, a story about a ragtag group of night shift workers who meet in the local cemetery to unearth the secrets lurking in an open grave. Another sequel is Wrath of the Triple Goddess. In order to get his second college recommendation letter, the goddess Hecate has offered Percy another opportunity. All he has to do is pet sit her mastiff Hecuba and her polecat Gale over Halloween week while she's away. Adam and Evie's Matchmaking Tour, a rollicking, unforgettable romance about two strangers finding love despite their best efforts as they embark on a sweeping matchmaking tour through Vietnam. The Dagger and the Flame. In the dark underbelly of a beautiful city, two rival assassins are pitted against each other in a deadly game of revenge, where the most dangerous mistake of all is falling in love. I have 7 titles for October 1st. The Dark Becomes Her. When a ghost attacks sisters Ruby and Tina Chen, Ruby races to save Tina from demonic possession and finds herself also thrown into an ancient battle over the gateway to the underworld. Now Comes the Mist, a Dracula retelling from the point of view of Lucy Westenra, and this one has a beautiful cover. A Song to Drown Rivers. The beautiful Shishi is tasked by a young military advisor, Fanli, to infiltrate an enemy palace as a spy, seduce their king, and weaken them from within. Heir. An orphan, an outcast, a prince, and a killer who will bring an empire to its knees. This is the new YA fantasy from Sabaa Tahir, and it sounds so good and has such a great cover. The Last Hope School for Magical Delinquents. A girl with unparalleled power must work with her misfit classmates to save her new school. Shoestring Theory. A queer madcap friends to lovers to enemies to lovers time travel romance with the future of the world at stake. Invisible Kitties, a feline study of fluid mechanics or the spurious incidents of the cats in the nighttime. A young couple's daily life is disrupted by their newly adopted cat, who soon initiates them into the wondrous world of felines, and this one's translated from Chinese. We have 3 titles for October 8th. The Wild Huntress. The Wild Hunt takes place every 5 years, and many gamble their lives in order to win the prize, a magical wish granted by the other king. Among this year's candidates are Bradwin, who wants to cure her mother's sickness, Gwydion, who wants to keep his older brother from tyranny, and Pryderi, who wants to learn more about his past. The Last Dragon of the East. When his mother's doctor sells him dragon scales as a miracle cure and it works, Sai is sent off by the emperor to find a dragon long thought extinct, an adventure that will take him unexpected places. The Nightmare Before Christmas. I actually don't have a summary on this one, which is weird. I should have one, but I'm going to assume it has very Nightmare Before Christmas vibes because that cover is fantastic and that's really what drew me in. There are 5 titles for October 15th. Tale of the Flying Forest. Anne is afraid her only happy endings will be in the fairy tale collection The World to Come, which is about the flying forest of Be Eli. But when a raven tells her she has a long-lost twin brother and she discovers that Be Eli is a real place, she must traverse the realm in order to find her brother. Legend of the White Snake. A snake spirit transforms into a boy and must hide his true identity after falling for a headstrong prince. The Bitter End. When a winter storm traps 8 teens in a remote ski cabin, they find themselves stranded with a killer who may be one of their own. If I Stopped Haunting You. An enemies to lovers romance with a spooky twist, where 2 feuding riders end up on a rider's retreat together at a haunted castle in Scotland. Catch and Keep. Marin walks away from the life she could have had and embraces the inheritance left to her, only to cross paths with Josiah Cole, whose getaway spot is where the bait shop Marin now runs is. We have 2 titles for the 17th. January's, which is a collection of short stories that sound like they have fairy tale vibes, written by Olivia Blake. Sorcery and Small Magics. Desperate to undo the curse binding them to each other, an impulsive sorcerer and his curmudgeonly rival venture deep into a magical forest in search of a counterspell, only to discover that magic might not be the only thing pulling them together. We have 3 titles for October 22. Bye Forever, I guess. Ingrid's online persona is more popular than she is. In real life, she's the quiet one. Until a wrong number text message offers her a chance at connection. Can this guarded gamer girl lower her shield for a new friend or more than friend? And this one is by an author who I adore, Jody Meadows, and has an excellent cover. I'm very excited for it. Spectacular. This is a holiday novella that's set in the world of Caraval, The Scholar and the Last Fairy Door, a mythic magical tale full of secret scholarship, fairy curses, and the deadliest spells of all, the ones that friends cast on each other. We have 2 titles for October 29, For She Is Wrath, a sweeping Pakistani romantic fantasy retelling of the Count of Monte Cristo, where one girl seeks revenge against those who betrayed her, including the boy she used to love. Don't Let the Forest In. 2 teen boys attempt to stop terrifying creatures that seem to be coming to life from macabre drawings. We have 1 title for November 5th, The Teller of Small Fortunes, which has a beautiful cover. A wandering fortune teller finds an unexpected family. I have 3 titles for November 11th, The Courting of Bristol Keats. Bristol Keats discovers her father might have been kidnapped and taken to another realm, and in order to save him, she journeys to a land of gods and fays and monsters. Unraveled, which is the official title for Keeper of the Lost Cities 9.5, and this is a series of short stories, novellas, I guess, following Keith on his adventures in the human world during the events of Stellar Lune. I love Keith. I mean, I really wanted the finale, but I will settle for this too because Keith. Midnights with You. Dee Dee gets secret driving lessons at night from the new boy next door, Jay, and it blossoms slowly from friendship into something more. November 19. The Songbird and the Heart of Stone. This is going to be spoilery for anyone who hasn't read the first 2 books in the Crowns of Nyaxia series. Consider this your warning. Misha is rescued from a death sentence by Asar, the bastard prince of the House of Shadow, and forced to join him in a journey to the underworld to resurrect the god of death himself, with secret instructions from her beloved sun god to kill the god of death. The Serpent and the Wolf. Vasa is married off to a ruthless foreign ruler as a death sentence by her merciless brother, only to make a deal with her new husband that grants her freedom if she assists him to rise in power and knowledge about the dark magic running through her veins and how to hold it at bay. Servant of Earth. In the underground Fey realm, only the strongest and most ruthless have power, but a young human woman forced into a life of servitude is about to change everything. On December 3rd, there's 1 title, Under Lock and Key. A woman discovers that not all monsters are her enemy. The opposite, in fact, and this one has Loch Ness Monster in it, so intriguing. And last but not least, on December 10th, we have A Monsoon Rising, the official title to the sequel of the Hurricane Wars, where 2 individuals on the opposite side of a war end up betrothed and working together to save their world from a bigger threat. If you've stuck around this long, made your own list, pulled out your Goodreads, pre-ordered some stuff, I would be excited to hear what you are excited about in the comments. I will also be linking to the spreadsheet where I list everything. It needs some links updated, but otherwise all these titles and the dates should be on there. And I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys with a new one soon. Bye!